To begin this timeline, we need to start back in age 732, before Goku was even born. At this point in time, King Cold was landing on planet Vegeta, which Paragus currently is shaking in fear as the Emperor's ship flies past the throne room. He is fearful at this moment because his wife is currently in the process of going through labor. Now, we have never seen Broly's mom, so we don't have a name for her, but for the sake of this timeline, I will name her Salah, which is a pun on the French word for lettuce, since one translation of lettuce in French is salad. Regardless, a major change in this timeline is she is pregnant with twins instead of just one child. Anyway, King Cold lands and disembarks his ship, with King Vegeta approaching the two tyrants to greet them. As usual, King Vegeta introduces the other Saiyans to Frieza, then kneels and welcomes him to their planet. As per usual, King Cold announces his retirement and says that Frieza will be the Emperor instead, so Frieza goes on to introduce himself. Frieza will then give them scouters and demonstrate how they work, which is when he notices the snipers and swiftly kills them. The two tyrants then depart, leaving 500 scouters behind for the Saiyans. After they leave, King Vegeta goes and checks on his son who is currently in a nursing capsule, though he eventually spots another child in the pod nearby and is angered by this and asks who this child is. So, some of the medics explain that he is a child of Paragus, and his battle power is abnormally high. At this point in time, Salah is still in labor with Kale, but Broly was already born and put into a capsule during the meeting with Frieza. Regardless, King Vegeta decides to measure Broly's power for himself, which is when the scouter breaks in his hand. Nyan then goes on to speculate he might be the legendary Super Saiyan. King Vegeta decides on his course of action. Soon after, Paragus rushes into the throne room, begging to have an audience with the king. He begs to know why King Vegeta is sending his son away like a low-class warrior, and he claims this to train Broly to unlock his potential. As per usual, Paragus points out that Wampa is a harsh world of no value to him, which is when King Vegeta reveals he fears Broly's power could be dangerous to planet Vegeta. He just tells Paragus to be grateful his son was spared. Then when Paragus says he was jealous about Broly being stronger than Prince Vegeta, he tells him Broly was already sent off the planet. So in a panic, Paragus flies out through a window of the throne room, going to chase after Broly. However, he realizes that if Broly had a great potential like this, his other child could as well, which would mean she could meet a similar fate. When he arrives at where Salah was giving birth, Kale was already born but her power wasn't tested yet. Salah wasn't allowed to leave, as she was recovering at this time, but Paragus will quickly fill her in on him saving their children. Though, when he reveals the part about wanting to raise her children to get revenge on King Vegeta, to his surprise Salah protests this. She's much more of a peaceful Saiyan than he is, so she says they shouldn't raise their children to be used for revenge like that. They should be able to become whatever they want to. So, before Kale's power is even measured, he snatched her up before she was taken to be put into a nursing capsule. Paragus, however, ignores Salah's protests about this, and in his anger he goes to leave with Kale. He then flies off to the spaceport and puts Kale into a capsule, so that if for some reason he is caught escaping, she isn't taken down with him. Also, he sends her to a nothing planet King Vegeta would never be interested in, planet Namek. After he sends her off, he sets his sight on a spaceship to steal for himself, with Beats still protesting and following him as he enters the ship, which Paragus ignores him and quickly takes off to head towards planet Wampa. Though as they are leaving the atmosphere, Paragus fills him in on his plight and what he was doing, telling him that the king was jealous of his son's power and sent him to a desolate world. So, he sent off his other child, Kale, as well, so that she wouldn't be exiled or worse, killed, which he plans to go and rescue Broly from Wampa first and then rescue Kale from Namek, which after retrieving the two and they go to a more habitable planet, Beats is free to return home. He'll also reveal his plan of training them both to unlock their incredible power so that he can get his revenge against the king. Everything then goes the same as per usual, with Paragus ignoring Beats' words of warning, causing them to crash land on the planet Wampa. Though they eventually find Broly, Beats still tells Paragus that they only have enough food and water for 10 days, they can't call for help, and their ship was damaged to the point that they can't leave. Unfortunately for Beats, this would anger Paragus, as he can't leave to go get his other child, so he shoots and kills Beats with the ray gun so that they can better preserve their rations. Now, back with Kale, her pod would have generally not been messed with on this trip to Namek, as no one knew where it was going or anything to intercept it, so after a little bit of time passes, it lands onto Namek, creating a crater when it landed. However, when the pod opens, she would be greeted with the sight of some warrior Namekians standing around the pod. However, when seeing it as just a baby, they would relax as they wouldn't be worried about a child. So, the warrior Namekians take the child back to their village, so they can ask the village elder what they should do with her. For the simplicity of things, the village these warriors are from is the village where Mori is the village elder. Anyway, Mori wouldn't know what to do with his child either, so their only option would be to take her to the Grand Elder and ask what to do with her. Mori would be the one to take her there, but he is stopped by Nail before he can go and enter the house of the Grand Elder. Nail would ask what they are there for, then Mori would show him the strange child, explain that they landed here in a strange pod, and they were going to ask the Grand Elder what they should do with her. So, Nail goes and reports this information to Guru, which he allows Mori to enter. When he does, Mori would explain what he knows, but Guru would have to resort to reading the mind of Kale to see why she was there. which he would see the parts of Paragus explaining to Salah that they were exiled since the king was jealous, so he sent them off planet to try and save their life. He'd still see the part of Paragus planning to come back to rescue her, so Guru would say they could take care of the child until then. From reading her mind, he would also learn that her name is Kale, so they would no longer just refer to her as the child. Anyway, Guru would say they should take care of her, at least until her father comes to rescue her. So, while they wait for Paragus to arrive, they would start to care for Kale. Though, after enough time passes, Mori would take her back to see the Grand Elder, as it doesn't seem like her father is going to be coming for whatever reason. So, this time, they start discussing what they should do with her. They have the options of sending her back, or potentially killing her after Guru reveals that the Saiyans are a warrior race. However, Mori would have grown attached to the child in the months he has cared for her, so to him, killing her would be out of the question. Then when Guru reveals her family was exiled and she could be killed for being sent back, he wouldn't want to do that either. So Mori will offer that they keep her here on Namek, and then he along with the other Namekians in his village will watch over her, which the Grand Elder allows him to do this. In this time of being raised here, they would never learn about the Great Ape transformation, as Namek has 3 sons, so it is never night there. She also never had the time for Saiyan nature to be imprinted in her or for her to be told about the Saiyan mission and taking over a planet, so she would never try to take over Namek. Also, she seems to take after her mother with her more peaceful nature. Though, this natural peaceful nature, in combination with the training by the peaceful Namekians, has a major effect on her personality. She would grow to be a shy and timid Saiyan, with her having an aversion to combat. The Namekians would try to have taught her that it isn't bad to fight when defending herself, but with her much more peaceful nature than the average Saiyan, she doesn't grow an interest in fighting. She would still learn the basic fighting techniques and maybe some basic ki attacks, but it isn't likely she would learn much more than those. This isn't because they weren't trying, however, because she had no interest in continuing to learn. She took much more of an interest in other parts of the Namekian society, such as learning how to garden. Eventually, however, as her power no longer grew from these basic training techniques, Mori might suggest she go learn some more techniques from Nail. Even though she doesn't like to fight, Mori might convince her to take this opportunity by saying she could learn more about the culture of the Namekians from Guru. She might even learn more about the Saiyan race, as Guru does have some knowledge about some species from other worlds. So, when she arrives at the Grand Elder's house, she would explain to Nail why she is there, and he would let her in. Which, she would talk to Guru and explain that Mori had sent her there to further expand her knowledge about the Namekians, and maybe even her home planet. So, Guru would explain to her the history of the Namekians, which what better source is there than Guru himself, since he lived through a lot of it. Regardless, he would eventually show her the Namekian Book of Legends too, as he would know it contained some information about the Saiyans. Mainly, he talked about the legend of the Super Saiyan and the Super Saiyan God, which, since she is old enough to hear about it at this point, Guru might reveal to her why her parents sent her to planet Namek, that being that her father sent her here to try and save her from being exiled by the Saiyan King. Though, this would be around age 737, so back on planet Vegeta, big things would be happening. Bardock and Lake are currently leaving to return to planet Vegeta, after Frieza called all the Saiyans back to their home planet, which just strikes Bardock as a little odd, especially when he sees Frieza's ship floating above the planet. Regardless, Bardock learns from Taro that Frieza's men have been going around asking about the legend of the Super Saiyan. The rest goes the same too, with Bardock returning to Guinea to ask her about their kids. Since Raditz is off planet, and Bardock is suspicious about Frieza, they still steal a pod and send Kakarot off the planet. Planet Vegeta is then destroyed by Frieza, though Bardock tried to stop the supernova with a final spirit cannon, but it was in vain, and he is killed along with the rest of the Saiyans on planet Vegeta. Back on Namek, Guru would have noticed that thousands of life forces on planet Vegeta disappeared in an instant, so he would realize that planet Vegeta was destroyed, and after debating on how to break this news to the child, he would eventually tell her. He would tell her that her home planet was destroyed by a tyrant named Frieza, and unfortunately her mother Salah was on the planet too when it was destroyed. However, he would try to soften the blow by saying that her father and brother are likely still alive somewhere out there in the universe, but he wouldn't know that for sure, though he doesn't reveal that part to the child. She would be bummed out a little by this part, but not too terribly much as she didn't know her mother or remember anything of her home planet. It would just sadden her that she'd never get a chance to meet her mother or see her home planet. Now, I don't see Guru using the Dragon Ball to revive Planet Vegeta, as he would figure the Tyrant would go back to destroy Planet Vegeta again, so it wouldn't change anything. Anyway, even if he did want to, the Namekian Dragon Balls can't revive multiple people at once. However, Guru could have them use the Dragon Balls to revive her mother and bring her back to planet Namek. But Guru wouldn't likely let them wish Broly and Paragus there, since when he read Kale's mind, he would have heard Paragus tell Salah his plan to raise Broly to get revenge against Vegeta, and he doesn't want someone violent like that on planet Namek. He would only have been willing to revive Salah, as he would have seen that she protested her children being raised for the purpose of revenge. Regardless, when Guru sees that Kale is visibly upset, he would tell her he has something to show her. He would reach for the Dragon Ball behind himself and hand it to her. She would be confused about what this is, as she thought it was just a decoration. So, he would explain to her that there are 6 more balls just like that one, and when all 7 are gathered, they can grant someone 3 wishes. which he would tell her that she can use the wishes to wish her mother back to life and to wish her to planet Namek. To give her something to do to keep her mind off what happened, he would send her to go and get the Dragon Balls by herself, though he would speak telepathically to all the village elders about what is happening so that they know to give her the Dragon Balls. So, she goes and collects the other 6 orbs, with the last one she obtains being at Mori's village. She would know Namekian at this point, since she was raised here, almost likely having been taught the common language of the universe, so she would be able to communicate with her mother when she arrives. Anyway, Guru would have taught her the phrase she needs to summon the dragon, so she uses it to summon Purunga. Now, there's 2 potential options for how the wishes would have to work. She would either need to wish for Salah's body to be reformed, then use a second wish to bring it to Namek, and then wish her back to life. Or she would have to wish for her body to be reformed, wish her back to life, and then wish her to Namek. It would likely have to be the first option, since otherwise she would be revived in the void of space. Anyway, the Dragon Balls would then scatter, and the Namekians would likely search the planet for them so they can put them back in the protection of their villages. Regardless, Salah would appear on Namek confused about where she is, which Kale would have been taught to sense energy, so she flies off towards where she senses a new energy on the planet. Once there, she would quickly explain to Salah that she is her daughter, Kale, which, of course, this would lead to a heartfelt reunion with her mother likely crying and hugging her. After hugging for a while, Kale would show her mother around Namek, eventually ending the tour by introducing her to the Grand Elder Guru, and saying he is the one that allowed her to be revived and brought here. Salah would thank him for this, and even though it saddens her to hear why Guru wouldn't bring Paragus and Broly to Namek, the explanation does make sense to her, since they are a peaceful people. Either way, she's just happy to be reunited with one of her children, as her and her daughter leave his building to settle down for their new life on planet Namek.